All right. Well, welcome. And so anyway, what a week this has been.
Yeah, this has been a interesting week. A lot of developments happening. But I think I should first ask you the question about what happened over the weekend, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Tell us about it. Tell us about it and the crisis management of this bank collapse by the Biden administration.
That's a huge deal. And President Biden, given his years of experience in the Senate and as a vice president, handled this with aplomb with his Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. They worked all weekend to secure a buyer was HSBC. They paid a princely sum of $1 for SVB. Now, of course, they have a lot of liabilities they're taking on too. The thing is that President Biden figured out a way to have all the depositors be made whole. That includes people that have deposited more than $250,000 because the FDIC has a limit. They will secure monies up to $250,000, but no more. But President Biden said, no, we're going to make sure that everybody is made whole and the taxpayers aren't going to pay anything. Now, that's not true. Anybody who deposits money in a bank is going to pay more because just like insurance, you have a car accident, your insurance rate will go up. The insurance rate paid by the banks and paid ultimately by the consumer is going to have to go up in order to account for this accident.
Tell us about about the speech that President Biden gave and the steps being taken. How is it going to impact the common man, or has it restored the confidence of the common man in the U.S. banking system?
Had President Biden not worked diligently this weekend, there would have been a true crisis. But by doing what they did, they were able to avert a spiraling crisis by making sure that everybody is made whole. In that sense, though, before, the reason that this bank failed was that they had made risky bets and they also didn't have enough cash reserve. Now, after the 2008 crisis, there had been a push by lawmakers to have regulations in place so that there would not be this kind of bank failure. That included higher cash reserves and also not making risky bets on either mortgage-backed securities or venture capital investments. Those were the two areas that SVB specialized in. The thing about those kind of areas is that they make the most money, but they're the most risky. And so you have to have a lot of reserve. And they did not have a lot of reserve in place. And they lobbied after Dodd-Frank very forcefully to make sure that they could overturn Dodd-Frank. There was a hearing in 2015 with the Senate Banking Committee, where agreed with them that they needed to pull back on the regulations of Dodd-Frank. And then in 2018, former President Trump actually was able to have those elements of Dodd-Frank overturned. And so when President Biden says that former President Trump is somewhat to blame for this, that's true. He is, because there was no restriction on the kind of investments that SVB could make.
Moving on from the SVB to again California. This time it is San Diego, where President Biden traveled this week along with two other leaders, prime ministers of Australia and United Kingdom. Can you tell us what is the importance and significance of that visit?
Huge because it's all about China. China has made it very clear that they're pushing their influence into the South China Sea. They're building fake islands. They're digging up dirt and they're throwing it into what used to be little atolls into these much bigger islands where they can actually land planes. They're made it clear that they have a distinct interest in invading Taiwan, taking it over. Xi Jinping says that he wants to do it by 2027. The problem is that Taiwan is not just another country. It's where 90% of all the semiconductors in the world are made. And so right now, President Biden is trying to mitigate that risk with the CHIPS Act to have semiconductors made in this country once again, but that's going to take many years to put that into place. So in the meantime, we need Taiwan as its little entrepreneurial island that it is to do what it's doing.
Do you think this will help in maintaining and restoring peace and freedom of movement in the Indo-Pacific region?
I mean, the whole idea of supplying Australia with these Virginia-class nuclear subs is deterrence, is to say to China, don't mess with our alliance. We will defend our friends, and we are going to defend Taiwan. And now, of course, this President Biden's supplying of these nuclear class subs to these Virginia class subs to Australia did not go over well with the French because they thought they were going to be supplying diesel powered subs to Australia. But there's a huge difference between diesel powered subs and nuclear powered subs, which can stay underwater almost indefinitely. So they're a much more effective deterrence. And the reason that we are doing that is to let China know we need to keep the peace. And by the way, it's not just in our interest, China, it's in your interest.
How do you think China is going to react from this?
They're not happy. They've already said that they feel that we are putting pressure on them. The answer is yes, that's true. We are putting pressure on them because they've been putting pressure on us, and they've made it very clear that they are anxious to control very vast swaths of the South China Sea. They're gonna, and so yes, it's going both ways. But what we're trying to do is keep the peace. This is not a pugilistic Department of Defense that's trying to make war. That's not what we're trying to do. We're actually trying to keep the peace by making sure that we have enough deterrence in place that any would-be nefarious actor thinks again before acting.
Wonderful. What else is happening there? What else you would like to tell your viewers?
Today is Pi Day. March 14th or 3.1415, right? And we are waiting on this day and over tomorrow, which is the Ides of March, for the DA from New York to most likely hand an indictment to former President Trump for campaign finance violations. Now, remember, a person went to jail for that scheme when Stormy Daniels was paid $130,000. Michael Cohen was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served 1 year in prison. So this is not just a minor misdemeanor. It's very serious.
I think we should call it a day. It has always been a pleasure talking to you week after week for the last 8 months. And we'll keep our readers and viewers informed and updated every week. Thanks to your uh, close watch on the developments in the White House. And and most of the time you give a historical perspective to it, which not many people know about it.
I will say this, and that is that one of my hobbies is to read a lot. And one book I just finished this week was a novel by Sinclair Lewis called "It Can't Happen Here." It was written in 1935, before World War II, obviously, and it was about the dangers of fascism creeping into the United States. And of course, reading this book today, it's interesting. Of course, it's scary almost how much it parallels the far-right movement in this country today, including xenophobia against immigrants, anti-Semitism, you name it. It's all there. In fact, one of the things that the fictional president in this novel does is he has his troopers dressed as Minutemen from 1776, and during January 6th Capitol riot, many people dressed like, I hate to say it, Minutemen, and so the parallels are very tight. So I recommend the book.
Wonderful. I think this is a very good idea. Every week you should recommend one book to our viewers.
I have a pile of them, and I'll just do that every week.
That would be our last question every week.
I will do that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Virtual.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.